they don't use OTAs.
Right.
They don't sell through OTAs.
Yeah,
They
that's a
sell
big
through-
deal.
That's a big deal. And when Douglas asked, like, why don't you sell through OTAs? It makes sense because June talked about how the experience with context starts from the very first message that they get from a traveler, right? Whether that's
Right.
through a word of mouth or through a travel advisor, which is a big part of their business. She said that 50% of their business comes from travel advisors. The other 50% is like direct. And a good portion of that is word of mouth, which is really impressive, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
every tour operator on the planet is drooling at the prospect of not having to sell through an OTA.
Welcome to the Best Part of Travel podcast, brought to you by Arival, where we take you inside the business of destination experiences. I'm Janelle Visser, and I'm here with Stephen Joyce.
Hi.
And today, we're going to be talking about building a multi-city tour brand without OTAs. We're going to listen in on a conversation between Arival co-founder and CEO Douglas Quinby and June Chin, who's the CEO of OTA-Travel, a tour company that has grown to become a global brand by offering tours for small and private groups to travelers who want to go off the tourist track and gain the context to not just see, but understand a place. So, to kick things off, Stephen, what's one really niche or specific weird thing you've done recently on a trip that relates to your interests?
A lot of people probably don't know that I'm really into electronic dance music, EDM, and like large music festivals and like raves, like large dance parties, basically. And when I was in Barcelona recently, I spent the weekend there, and a person that I met in Barcelona told me that there was this massive music festival happening in Barcelona that weekend. I was just planning to do some sightseeing, get to know the city, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they invited me to this rave on the Sunday that I was there with her and three of her best girlfriends. So we all went to this rave together. I'd never met them before, and I'd only met the one person a couple times. And it was, I kid you not, it was one of the best experiences of my life. Just being in that space, in a city I'd never been to before, surrounded by literally thousands of people that were there to just have an incredible positive experience and just dance and listen to amazing music. And it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I will never forget that. And it was really special. And it was completely out of the blue. Like I would never have planned for that. And it was something that is uniquely Barcelona because the festival only happens in Barcelona. It was amazing, just timing and coincidence. So how about you, Janelle?
So there's a few things that come to mind, but the one that I'll say is I recently did a really cool trip to Newfoundland and Labrador, as I'm a fan of ducks and also penguins.
Yes.
And I got the chance to see live and in person puffins, which are like the penguins of the north.
Man, you have this thing for water birds.
I know, it's weird. They're so adorable. They're so cute. And we got to get like really up close to them, the puffins that are flying around and coming home to roost on this rock. And it was just it was a really special experience to get like super up close. And there's only a few places in the world where you can actually see puffins that up close. And one of them is this little spot in Newfoundland. So that was a really special experience. This is pretty niche, but yeah, I feel like I was unreasonably excited for seeing a bunch of little fluffy birds flying around. And then after that, of course, we went to Dildo, Newfoundland for the beer and also the name. And yes, that is a real place where Jimmy Kimmel, fun fact, once ran for mayor. So they have good beer.
Oh, I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
He wanted to become the mayor of Dildo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an upstanding position, apparently.
Okay. So on that note, we're going to get into this podcast episode. But first, a message from our podcast sponsor. Sorry. I just feel like that's a really weird segue into talking about protection. Okay, go ahead.
Protect Group offers a service called Refund Protect. The way it works is that an operator or reseller offers Refund Protect at the time of checkout for an extra fee, usually around 10% of the ticket price. If the guest can't go because of some unforeseen circumstance, they request a refund through Refund Protect and they get 100% of their money back. The best part is the operator keeps 100% of their revenue and they make a little extra. So to find out more, go to protect.group/bestpartoftravel.
Okay, so before we jump into the conversation, let's just talk a little bit about context travel and why we're talking to them. We've talked a fair bit about this shift from destination-based travel to interest or passion-based travel. And context travel has built their brand up around this idea of expert-led tours on topics that are of special interest to the traveler. Their tagline on their website is tours guided by experts, led by your interests. So, what do you think of this shift that they've capitalized on in their company?
Context has been around. This is a thing. Like Context is one of these brands that.
Yes, please give us some context on context travel.
So many puns and things we could do with wordplay, but Context has actually been around for a long time. It's not a new company. They've been around. They've always really focused on academic led tours. So tours that are led by experts in a particular field. And you hear June talk more about that and what they look for when they hire guides and the type of people that go on these tours. But it's not a new brand. This is a brand that's been around for a long time. It's not particularly well known in sort of general day tour circles because they don't distribute the way that most tours and activities distribute, and because they're very specific to this kind of passion-based, interest-based trend now. So they've been doing it for a long time before the trend really picked up. Now that this trend is here to stay and is really solidified, I think they're in a really great place to take advantage of that and really see some amazing growth, which again, June will talk about, and we'll let her explain how they foresee their next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, cool. Well, without further ado, let's get into it.
June, thanks so much for joining us on the Arival podcast.
Thanks for having me, Douglas. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I think we've talked about this before. There really aren't many globally recognized brands within the tours and activities sector. Maybe a few, like some of the hop-on, hop-off buses and Gray Line to a degree, but even within the industry, it's interesting how little awareness there is of a lot of really important big companies in our industry. So can you just give us a background on context travel, like what it is, who you are, what you do, how big you are?
Sure, happy to. Have you ever returned from a trip and felt like you saw the place, Douglas, but didn't really understand it?
I don't know. I could say that about a lot of aspects of my life, but yeah. You need to go back, or I think so. Yeah.
Like most travel today is fast. It's surface level. It's pretty forgettable, right? We check boxes, we take photos, and we move on without really ever truly connecting to the place, the culture, the people. And context exists to change that. We create half and full day experiences in cities all around the world. We're led by scholars, historians, passionate local experts. And it's not just about information, it's about perspective, right? It's about being present, asking better questions, discovering the world through the lens of culture, conversation, human connection. Over the past 2 decades, we've been around for 2 decades, the company has gone from a single city operator to a global brand that's delivering over 25,000 experiences to about 100,000 guests per annum.
Wow. How many cities do you operate in?
Somewhere between 70 and 80 right now, depending on how you account excursions off of cities.
Okay, no, fair enough. And is it US or English speaking travelers? So going to Europe, going to Asia. So it's predominantly that international outbound?
Yeah, it's predominantly
traveler?
long haul international travel, North Americans traveling to the cultural capitals in Europe. And we've been expanding quite aggressively in Japan. And so we've seen a lot of growth in Japan and Asia. So Yes, but we are in 6 continents, most heavily in Europe.
The stories actually just coming out of just Japan in particular this year have been really interesting. That market has just exploded. I know that the currency has been really weak against the US dollar, which has been strong, but a lot of intra-regional travel there as well. Why has Japan been growing so much? Any insights there?
I do think that the country itself, the government has put a lot of investment into tourism, right? And there's this whole like Cool Japan movement, which is really investing in people understanding the culture more deeply, getting it known around the world. Japan opened up a little bit later than Europe did post-pandemic, so I do think it started to see the revenge travel boom a bit later. But we're seeing that continuing. We've been seeing triple-digit growth for the last few years, and it hasn't really slowed down, so to speak.
And so everything that you do it's private tours, right? It's all private tours.
It's, I would say, private and semi-private. We do have small group tours. We call them very small group tours because they are truly intimate. Think 6 people at a museum, no more than 10 in a neighborhood walk. I think a lot of other companies in the industry, they tend to call small group, you could have 15 to 20 people on a tour and they're calling that small group. But the idea behind our experiences are as though you're sitting around a dinner table, right? And you can hear the conversation well amongst 4, 5, 6 people.
So you talked about this idea of the travel and you're not knowing a place. So your mission is to change that and to really connect the traveler to the place. So I do hear that a lot from a lot of tour operators, right? Like we have the local experts, connect with the place, connect with the people. How do you communicate? So I guess, can you share a little bit more specifically, like what is it exactly that you do that's, say, different from from everybody else?
Yeah, and I would say it is true. We're actually going in the middle of working on an entire brand refresh and merchandising site marketing campaign because I do think that we have a lot of people coming in now and using a lot of the same vocabulary that we've been using for a couple of decades. We're here for curious travelers. We're here to connect you more deeply. We've got the best expert storytellers. The fact of the matter is our guides are true subject matter experts. They're experts in their fields. 80% of them do have masters or PhDs in art history, archaeology, architecture. And that
You used to call them docents. I remember do you still do that, or?
We did used to call them docents. Our founder Paul Bennett, I think, definitely still calls them docents. We moved away from that because we were getting a lot of people saying to us, particularly as we started to expand beyond word of mouth and leading into other channels, we were getting people saying, "What is a docent? A document?"
That's fair. Yeah.
So we moved into kind of saying expert guides. I think that expertise really sets us apart. They're not just expert storytellers. They're not just passionate locals. They are those things, but the expertise allows us to tailor every single experience to the person that's in front of them, right? And so depending, what they could be a history professor or they could be an 8-year-old, but they're going to be curious and they're going to have questions. And how can you respond to that in a way that's not just a script or doesn't sound somewhat shallow or something like some standard answer that they Googled, but how do they actually put it into context for you? How do they not just give you the answer, but help you to understand not just that point in time in history, but how that might relate to how you're seeing things today, how your own life, how you explore and see the world.
Do you have a lot of 8-year-olds taking your tours? Like when I think of context travel and the types of tours, I don't think of it as like a family trip, but
it's interesting because we used to have a lot of couples and empty nesters. We're seeing a lot of multi-generational skip gen family travel in the last few years. And so beyond just, the intellectually curious travelers, the grandparents and parents that perhaps want to expose their teens and tweens to the world, to different cultures. And we're seeing a lot of, I would say, like memory makers, like families that are looking to create unique, lasting memories. And they want, it could be that we often talk about like the jobs to be done for our customers. And for some of them, it's I'm traveling with my parents that are 80 years old and my kid that's 8 years old. And I want to make sure that everyone in that party has a fantastic time and that I don't have to stress and worry about it. And I can trust you to deliver a phenomenal experience and we'll all learn something along the way. We'll all understand it a bit better.
Was small group, but also private, and the majority of the tours you deliver are private. Is that
That's correct. That is
okay?
correct. Yeah.
So my impression, that's typically for the more affluent or upscale traveler.
Yeah, our guests do tend to have higher disposable income. They're willing to invest in expert-led, tailored experiences tailored to their interests. I would say they're affluent. They're not necessarily ultra or high net worth, but they do have higher disposable household income.
So just with private tours for a minute, is that how custom are private tours? When I think of private, I'm hiring really the guide for the day or for the half day. Is there a lot of customization that's typically involved, or are travelers really just looking for the set tour, but they want to see the highlights of X or the tour of the museum, but they just want it for their own group?
Yeah, I would say in terms of how customized, they're personalized and flexible, but they're not bespoke concierge style custom. So essentially, I would say people, because we have experts leading you and taking you around the city on a private experience, they're not only tailoring the tour to your interests, but it could be the pace of the party, right? Am I going with a child that has attention deficit disorder, or parents that kind of need to take a few extra bathroom breaks or stop along the way, right? So there's reasons like that. But there's also, so it could be pace, it could be family dynamics, right? Like the example I just gave, it could be something like just even the circumstances or the mood of the day. So they do want to, sometimes they'll say, I definitely want to go to the Louvre. I've been there 10 times. I don't want to see the Mona Lisa again. Take me into this other wing. And sometimes they'll say, I've been there 10 times, but I'm going with my nephew who just graduated from university and it's his first time. So how can you cater it to both of us? And so we're looking at those sorts of unique party dynamics interests. But yeah, and some of them are history buff. Some of them are obsessed with World War II. Some of them are going back to learn more about their family heritage. And some of them just want to make sure that they want to make sure that they're seeing the places in the best possible way and they're not missing anything. These are people, this is going to be the best 2 weeks perhaps of their year. And so for some folks, it's a once in a lifetime trip, right?
We've seen so much growth over the past, since I've been covering it at Arival, so for the last 7 or 8 years, but in particular coming out of the pandemic, a real surge in private tours. Is that simply a function of more affluent travelers? And we've seen this kind of growing wealth disparity, especially in the U.S. economy. Or is there something more? I mean, something more in what travelers are looking for, or is it simply just a function of how the consumer economy is evolving?
I think it could be, it's nuanced, this industry, right? No two guests are the same. I do think that we have a lot of FIT, free independent travelers, that are doing their own research. They have very specific circumstances in which they're traveling. I had one mom tell me this is her first trip that she's taking with her younger twins since the pandemic, and her oldest son is now in college, and he still talks about his context experience from 6 years ago. And she wants to make sure that they have the same sort of like memorable experience that they're talking about in university and as young adults. And so they're coming back, but they want to do it. They know the type of expert guide that they're looking for. They want to be able to share, these are the personalities of my kids, of my family. This is what they're interested in. And I don't want just something that's going to be a scripted tour regurgitated by a college kid. I want someone in front of my family that is really going to help them uncover the layers, give them the context that they would never otherwise had.
So what does it take to be a context guide?
So many, what are the ingredients? Certainly an expertise in a particular field, right? We have as I mentioned earlier, we have archaeologists, art historians, culinary experts. So there's some sort of expertise, but there is a deep connection and a passion that's infectious, right? So we're not just looking on paper for academic credentials. We're looking for someone with an uncommon ability to bring a place alive. We're looking for someone that can read the room, read the audience, read the people in front of them, understand where they're coming from, and know how to weave them into the story and narrative. So that's a really unique blend, I would say, of skills. Some of them come with many years of guiding experience, and some of them come as researchers and experts in their field, or maybe university professors, and they want to share this outside of the classroom. So I think their level of guiding experience is sometimes anywhere from first time guides to 20-year veterans, but their expertise is always there. And that passion, the hospitality, being the consummate host concept is always there.
So I think we touched on this a little bit, but how do you convince the customer of that in a way? There's so much noise in the market. There's, as we discussed before, like every tour operator says the same thing. They have amazing guides, they have experts, locals who know the place. In fact, I had a really interesting conversation a few weeks ago with Brian Nicholson, one of the partners at Blend Marketing. It works with a lot of operators, and you made this interesting observation that so many tour operators, they put an enormous amount of focus on the value of their guides and how that makes them special, like it's a unique selling point. Every operator does that, and he's seen in his research, and we've done kind of similar work where, in fact, for most travelers, when they're making that decision, do I do tour A or do I do tour B? This one is a little bit close, got an easier pickup, or this one is departing at a more favorable time, or this one's $15 cheaper. So there's definitely, on the one hand, a tour is not a commodity at all. It's like how you're spending your time. And on the other hand, a big part of that path to purchase for the traveler is very much commoditized to a degree. It's like, this is what I'm going to see. This is when it departs. How do you stand out? Because you've also got higher price points. That's my impression with Context as well, that it's a higher price point. Maybe that's one of those selling points as well. But how do you, cut through sorry, it's a long-winded question, but it's a complicated topic, I think.
It is a topic that we are discussing very heavily here at Context. I would say that, and it's compounded by the fact that, we'll highlight the fact that it is with experts, that it's a very small group, 6 people on a museum or venue tour. You have a lot of other people that will just say, we're a very small group. This is our small group price, and this is our large group price. But they don't put what are the max packs, and they don't put they leave some of those important facts out. I would say that, there's a couple of things. One is we're building relationships. And so a lot of our guests, travelers, customers are coming through word of mouth, right? And they're coming from people that have gone on an experience that realize it is not like John Doe's tour, right? Or the one that's even $100 cheaper. It's an entirely different experience. And so they're coming back, they're saying these things. So we lean into word of mouth. The experience is not just, it always comes back to the people, but it's not just the guides. And we talk about this as a team all the time. Like, the experience happens from the first interaction with the brand. I've had people say, I'm going to Japan, and I was debating, they told our head of Asia Pacific, I was debating between your company and a hotel brand and someone else, and I went with you guys. It was simply because they said they read the other company's site and they weren't even sure exactly what they were getting, but you guys replied to me within a matter of hours, and we had there was a human asking me about what I was interested in, who I was traveling with. They weren't getting that from the other players. So that kind of, it comes back to the people. The expert guides are the face of our organization. They are the soul. They're the heart of it. But at the end of the day, every team member that is answering an inbound inquiry, that is responding to a customer email, right, that journey starts then, long before you book the tour, long before you hop on the plane, and it extends afterwards. You come back, and someone's followed up, like, how did it go with Brendan in Munich? How did it go with Demo in Rome? I know that your son was so excited to go to go be at the Colosseum's arena, right? And so it's those sorts of conversations where people feel like, wow, I was really seen, I was really heard, and it's at every touch point.
How can you share how many of your customers come from word of mouth? Do you track that?
Yes, and attribution is always a fun and exciting thing, but I would definitely, it's somewhere between 25 to 50%, right?
Okay.
So
So that's big. It's a big range, right? But
yeah,
but
and I would say it typically varies anywhere between 30 and 40, call it. And then we also have, I think, the advisor channel, which you and I talked about, I think in an earlier conversation, is another way that we are really getting noticed and recognized as a premium quality operator, a trusted brand
now when you
in
say
70, 80
advisor, I
investors.
mean we're talking travel agents. That's the
Yes,
new.
yeah, they're called
Yeah.
TAs, travel advisors
Yeah.
now. They used to
Yeah.
be called travel agents.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because sometimes people, I feel like 10 years ago, it's, oh, who used a travel agent in their 20s, 30s, 40s? It was mostly like your parents' thing. But I think that post pandemic, we're seeing a ton of people that are really leaning on luxury travel advisors and to help plan their trips. And we have quite a presence in that community. They know that they're an expert in maybe one, two, three cities or regions. Being able to come to us and say and be and then turn to their clients looking like the trusted expert because they're getting information from us as an operator and they know that the quality is the same whether you're doing it in New York or Rome or Munich or name Croatia, just name your place. So that's been, I think, a way that we've been able to certainly broaden our reach, build kind of trust and credibility amongst curious travelers.
Yeah, I've been in the industry a long time, and for years, the expectation was the travel agency landscape would really contract over time as everything moved online. And big pieces of it has, but there's still a large, I think I just saw a report either in Focusrite or maybe Skiff somewhere about there's still 60,000 or so registered travel agents or agencies in the US, and they do so it's a lot of upscale, a lot of luxury, a lot of long haul. And that's, I think, part of that shift from calling them travel agents, like an agent who just sells a ticket, to an advisor,
Yeah.
like really a consultant. But I guess with just given context scale, you have the capacity to work directly with an agency group or a consortia like Signature or Virtuoso.
Correct.
But I think for most tour operators who are single destination or smaller businesses, they need to find those agencies that, okay, if I'm running an upscale tour in Rome, I need to find that agent when they're selling that traveler to go to that trip to Rome. Any thoughts on how that small operator would engage with the agency community?
Yeah, even for us, it started at the agency level before it did at the consortial level. So it started at the agency or
Okay.
even the independent advisor level. And so we really built up credibility with small mom and pop independent advisors, as well as some kind of tight knit community, small to mid sized agencies. And I think by doing that, then those agencies were a part of these larger consortia like Virtuoso or Signature. And our
How did you
name,
find them though? Is it market research or how did you identify?
well, they found us, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of some of a lot of the advisors, I think they came to us. I would have to ask our head of sales and partnerships if like where it actually started. And this was probably back in 2017 was when this channel started to really grow and become a meaningful
Yeah.
business for us.
Yeah, no, I know there's Project Expedition, which is it's like an online travel agency, but that really focuses on sales through travel agents.
Yeah.
I think Viator and some of the other like OTAs in our space have a travel agency, like a travel agency channel. But I guess if you work directly with agencies, aren't the commissions generally are a lot small, they're lower for when you're working directly with an agency group than with an OTA. Is that correct?
Yes, I think distribution through OTAs are we don't distribute through OTAs. From what I hear from other people in the industry, I think that's as high as like 25 to 30% right now, and it's a sea of commoditized assets essentially, right? And so it is really just playing. A lot of people are just simply moving that filter along for price, and they're not really able to discern quality or differentiated value on a lot of those sites. And that's why it hasn't really made sense for us. Whereas you go to a luxury travel agency advisor, they know their clients well, they have their own relationships with them. And it's a more qualified user, guest, traveler.
Yeah. So the no OTA topic, that's a super interesting one. So, I think certainly among the Arival, community, that's the exception, not the rule. Yeah, tell us a bit more. So is it simply because of the nature of the marketplace? Is it the commissions that put you off, or is it not the right channel for a context product? What's the reason for working with no OTAs?
Yeah, I would say that typically the people, it varies, right? We have a lot of luxury travel advisors that first come to us, and the first time they hear about us, they say, "Oh, how are you different from a Viator?" Or "Are you just, your platform looks really cool. Is it the same?" And no, we're a brand, we're an operator, we're owning all these experiences. We're not just an aggregator of supply. And then we say, "Have you had fantastic experiences on these platforms?" Yes. "Have you had some really crappy ones too?" Yes. So how do we close that gap in quality, and how can you trust us? So for us, it's really about not getting lost in the noise and finding the right, curating that experience. Context isn't for everyone. If you're simply looking to hop on, if you're perfectly fine to do the fast paced, I just want to take a couple of TikTok photos for TikTok or Instagram, and I want to check off these places on the bucket list and visit the landmines. Feels like a landmine sometimes. I want to visit them just to check things off. That's not, and I want to do it at the lowest possible price. That's not the type of guest that's going to be happy or have a great experience in a context tour, right? You can get a cheaper experience elsewhere, and you can certainly check things off a list a lot faster than you can if you're going around, if you're on a bus tour around a city. These are meant to be slower. These are meant to engage in deeper conversation, and not just have someone entertain you from a megaphone.
But what about that kind of rising, especially kind of younger, more affluent traveler that's doing everything digitally, doing everything online? They're booking some things on OTAs, and I do see a lot of upscale product on some of the OTA platforms. And also I've been hearing from them as well, like they're doing more on the private tour side as well. Is that so? You really don't feel there's a market there for you?
I mean, it's not that we're not on any platforms, right? You mentioned Project Expedition earlier. Rob Keane, we've done a partnership with him, so we're on there. We look for ways to.
But they're like 99, I think.
But
Those
that's
are travel
advisors.
agents.
That's advisors, yeah. But in terms of, I do think that perhaps there's ways to get into. Right now, we have. It's all about trade-off opportunities, and you mentioned 60,000. I think there's 100,000 or something U.S. travel advisors out there right now, and we've barely penetrated that. We're growing at a really fast clip there. We're a known entity. We're a brand that's recognized. And it's usually not as simple as plug and play, even with the OTAs. You're managing inventories. If you have the API connections, it's quite a heavy lift actually to manage that inventory across all these distribution channels, right? And so right now we just want to make sure that we're focusing time and effort on the ones that are the best fit for us, right? Who knows? Maybe in a couple of years' time, we'll be talking and be like, okay, I've got like 10 or 15% on an OTA. That's not the world we're focused on right now.
So can you share a little bit about what channels work really well for you? You've talked about the travel agency channel. Are you comfortable sharing kind of the mix of direct versus agency, or some of the key marketing channels that have been really valuable for you?
Yeah, we're about 50-50 now. Yeah, the advisor channel has grown quite a lot for us in the last couple of years. And so it's just about at the 50% mark. The other 50% is coming from direct. As I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of word of mouth and organic, but we do invest in the big algorithms. We're expanding our reach through performance marketing, so Google, a little bit of Meta. And then obviously we're looking for optimizations, SEO, AEO, those sorts of things, so people can find us easier.
AEO, just for everyone knows SEO. What is AEO?
The AI equivalent, answer engine optimization, I believe, is the.
I've heard GEO is a term I've heard used more and more as well, which is GPT engine optimization.
Okay, yeah.
Optimization, I think, or is that?
Yeah,
okay,
so I guess GEO will be a subset of AEO.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to come back to AI in a sec, but just quickly. So is social, we've talked about search, is social a big channel?
Social is more top of funnel for us. So it's not a big channel for us at the moment, although it is one that we definitely We worked our way up from bottom of the funnel to middle, top of the funnel, and so we want to do more there, but it's not a huge channel for us at the moment. I guess when you say social, you mean Meta, right? Or something like that.
What we see, at least in our research, is there's still with Meta, there's two very different platforms with Facebook and Instagram and different customer sets. It's like my generation seems to still be hanging out on Facebook, but my son, who's in college, doesn't even have an account, and so he's on Discord and TikTok. Yes. And so I imagine you're not quite on Discord yet.
We're not on Discord yet.
So what about AI? How are you thinking about AI with search? Seems that's like a huge topic this year, and how AI overviews are just fundamentally upending the search path for users.
Yeah, and I would say, and I know I'm friends with Brennan from Propellic, and he publishes a lot on lot on this topic. I would say we're not using them at the moment for AEO and SEO, but I will say that we are keeping a close radar and kind of, so like, how is it if like ChatGPT traffic is growing astronomically for us, but it's off a very small base. And the questions that I have is, how much is the pie shifting, or is it additive? Is it pie shifting? What's happening there? And so we're watching. I can't say that I could speak as an expert on this topic today, but it's certainly, we know enough to know that we have to be looking at this carefully, because AI overviews are changing, I think, how top of funnel traffic gets to large operators, small operators, and everything in between.
Are there things that you're doing, or I don't know, testing a little bit or differently as a result that you could comfortable sharing?
I mean, with AI in general, or yeah.
Yeah, on the search front, are there, just in terms of, I don't know, content or?
I do think that because how people are searching on ChatGPT or other AI, using AI, it comes in quite differently than a typical keyword search that would go in through an SEO. There are best practices, which other people in the company are probably more equipped to talk about than myself. But we are definitely taking a look at the best practice guidelines and the latest and greatest released out there, and making sure that we are keeping up to date as best as we possibly can there.
What about just AI in general across the organization? Any AI guides yet, for context?
AI guides
or avatars?
So I'm a very firm believer that this industry really comes down to human connection, right? And so we look at AI not as a replacement to that, but certainly as an accelerant, right? The same way we've looked at tech in general before AI, right? Tech as an enabler of our business, and a way to help it to scale better. But certainly, I wouldn't say that we're a tech company, but we are powered by tech for sure. On the AI front, we're using it quite a bit, certainly for on the back end, whether that's operational efficiencies, right? Presentations, SQL queries, even because we're a global organization, English is not always first language of everyone around the globe, and polishing multilingual communication. A big use case is, I would say, analyzing large data sets, large qualitative data sets, right? We're big learners. We're constantly collecting feedback from our customers and guests, from our TAs, from our expert community, our staff. And so we have these large volumes of qualitative data. It's very helpful to have AI to help us extract key themes. It helps guide training, helps guide perhaps portfolio development. And then I would say we use it like a sparring partner almost. It's not giving us the answers. If we're leaning into a new strategy or we're doing some market research, we use it to pressure test our thinking, right? And we have it acting as a competitor, critiquing our plan in some way. And so those are a few different ways that we're using AI context here.
Yeah, no, I love that characterization as a sparring partner. We had a talk at our event in Edinburgh last year from Tom McGarry at Holiday Extras, and he characterized it as like basically having a an executive assistant who's got a PhD in everything.
Yeah.
Who
That's a great-
can
yeah.
help you. But I also, when I just do that, like just almost everything now that I create, I'm battle testing against AI for improvements or suggestions. Oh, I didn't never thought of that. So
Yeah, it starts with the human, it ends with the human, but there's a lot of kind of pressure testing in between and thought partnerships that could happen. Yes. I just recently used it for my own personal trip with my family. I'm like, oh, my family loves this, my 13-year-old loves that, and we like this resort and this place. Where should we go to? Where should we go to next? But I wanted to see what it would tell me. I'm of course checking the results with my own, right, with my own
what did you
research.
think?
But it's streamlined.
Did you trust the results?
It gave me 5 different options. I really loved 2 of them. I would say you learn a lot about your own prompts, right? It's only as good as the garbage in, garbage out. It's only as good as the prompts you put in. I'll give you an example. My husband doesn't want me to work, so he tries to stay as far away from context cities when we travel on vacation as possible. So he wanted to go to a Caribbean beach, but we had essentially fed in trip from last year that we loved, why we loved it, the beach resort. I didn't factor in recency or climate change or anything like that. So he gave me what has been the most beautiful beach in the last, I don't know how many years, 10 years, say, whatever long I had data on it. But certainly there was a huge seaweed problem on the beach. And I was like, I should have fed in recency of information and reviews and things like that. So we have to be careful when we over rely on it. But that was my own personal experiment.
What does context look like in 5 years? What's your vision for the business? I guess besides, I presume, having far fewer options for your husband to choose a vacation.
Exactly.
But
certainly, for me, it's really about I'm excited to show a lot more people a smarter and better way to travel and to experience the world in context. Right now, I mentioned that for 100,000 people a year, we're the most memorable part of their trip. And by the time 2030 comes around, I'd love to be able to say that we're doing that for 1 million people, right? And that those people are more of a microcosm of our world and all of its rich tapestry of languages and cultures and experiences and history. To me, that's something that I'm pretty passionate about. There's 8 billion or so people in this world, and how do we just continue to build understanding in a constantly changing world? Why is that so important? I can think of a bajillion reasons, and I'm just fostering that vision and mission.
How do you know? So you said that the context experience is the most memorable part of your customer's trip. I guess you survey them and
they tell us.
They tell us. How many come back? How many among your customers? What's your repeat rate?
Yeah, we have, so it depends on the time period that you're looking at it, right? Because this is long haul international travel. Some of our customers are traveling every year or multiple times a year. Some of our customers are traveling every other year. And some of our customers are doing milestone trips and anniversaries, right? When their kids turn 12 or 13, when they're on their 50th, 60th, 70th wedding anniversary or birthday celebration or something like that. In terms of repeat, like right now, about 35% of our customer base are repeaters. And how does that eke up over time? I certainly want to make sure that we're building relationships so that in 5 years' time, 50% plus 60% are repeaters, right? And so how do you grow and continue to keep that stickiness?
With that kind of that 10x kind of goal over 5 years, which is it's an awesome goal. Is that just organic growth and adding cities, or is it adding new product lines, like more kind of scheduled, small and medium sized, or even kind of larger group experiences? Is it acquiring other companies? I think this industry is quite interesting for the lack of M&A and brand building right at a global scale like we see in other parts of travel.
Yeah, it's a highly fragmented industry. I thought we would have seen, coming out of the pandemic, a lot more consolidation than we have to date. I will say that some of it will be organic through expansion. Some of it will, I think, certainly be via strategic partnerships or kind of inorganic growth opportunities. There are a lot of big players in the hospitality sector right? More generally, that are experiences is the new luxury, and they're looking for, I think, global operators. And I'm keen to find brand aligned, mission aligned companies where we can help them, because it's not an easy industry. Execution is everything, and we've learned a lot over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I remember I had a conversation with another experienced operator who, I won't share who it was, but he shared with me, like, when he first got into the business, he was bringing an executive from another industry, and that executive who was a serious operator, experienced executive, but was overwhelmed or just struck by the operational intensity and complexity of running a tour business. Let me just, so one last question, June, because your background it's not the typical tour operator background. A lot of the owner operators that I've met, some that are running very big companies today, they graduated from college, they got on a plane, and they began taking groups around Rome or Europe somewhere. And then they're like, oh, I think I can do this by myself and I can do a better job. And then they hang out their own shingle and they end up building a business. But your background is, from what I saw, is finance, transactions, very different perspective. And especially in this industry, like in our research, we've seen that as many as a third of operators aren't profitable, and many it's more of a lifestyle business. And as long as it makes money and keeps the kids out of trouble and they're enjoying their life. But so when you join Context, given your background, anything just about the industry or how it runs or the economics of it, anything that's, I don't know, stood out for you, or maybe things that you think, I don't know, from a finance professional's perspective, the industry needs to learn? Or
Yeah, I've got two answers to that. So I guess the first, I think your comment about the other leader in the industry that had talked about how operationally complex everything was. There's a lot of logistics, right, to work out. You have to be on top of all of the details. One of the things that is probably surprising, and the margins are thin because you've got a lot of player steps on the supply side to go through. Instead of thinking about that as a negative or a weakness, I really think that it's one of our industry's greatest strengths, right? It forces discipline. It pushes leaders to really understand things like channel economics and performance marketing and distribution strategy. And you can't just buy growth in this industry. You really have to earn it sustainably. So I do think it pushes the rigor and the thinking at a whole different level. In terms of like when people think about finance and travel more generally, they usually picture two very different worlds, right? On the one side, you've got, numbers and markets, what the heck's that? On the other side, you have experiences and memories. And actually, it's very much the same business, right? We're in the business of protecting something scarce and precious, right? In finance, it's money. In travel, it's time. Right. And so financial advisors, they're fiduciaries, right? Stewards of their clients' wealth. And I think, what about if more and more travel companies really took the same approach? They see themselves as fiduciaries of their travelers' time, right? They're not just service providers. So these are guests I mentioned earlier. They're expecting their holiday to be the best 2 weeks of their year. Maybe they're entrusting us with their once in a lifetime trip, right? Every hour spent, it's an investment that they'll never get back. So we can bring some of finance's discipline into travel, like things like risk management, personalization. Two financial portfolios are never created equal. Transparency, long-term incentives. And the more we do this, we build more trust, we deliver more value, and we just make the industry, I think, a lot more resilient. Like, money can be regained at the end of the day, but time can't, right? And so I think it really makes our industry such an important investment industry in the world.
I love that expression of a fiduciary of our customers' time.
I hadn't really thought about it until you asked me the question, to be honest.
Yeah. But no, it's an experience it's how am I going to spend my time? We're going on vacation or we're traveling, and I'm how are we going to spend time with my family? We have this chunk of time. What's the best way to make use of that? Because that's the memory that we want to create. Yeah, I may steal that from you, June, and use that from
Sure
time to
thing.
time. So
That'd be a huge compliment. I'll take it, Douglas.
this could go on for I still have a lot of questions on my list, but I think we'll have to save it for
I'm going to see you in DC in
for
a
the
few
next
weeks.
podcast. Yeah, that's right. And we'll be talking about a lot of these things. We have a session on working with travel agencies, a session on private tours that you're going to be joining. Thank you very much. Lots of topics, and then a million sessions on AI, of course. And yeah, so
Looking
thank you so
forward to
much
it.
for joining us, and and for your time today. This was amazing.
Thanks so much, Douglas. Appreciate it.
Okay, so Stephen, what did you think of that conversation? What jumped out at you from that?
I really like their model. I really like the idea that they're trying to do something different. Everybody says that they're trying to do something different, but context really is walking the walk when it comes to creating these premium experiences for people. These are not cheap tours. They're not the hop on, hop off, buy the same day, stand there with 30 other people looking at a statue type tours. These are catered, these are tailored, they go deep into a topic. I really love when she was talking about how they hire guides and who they look for, about how they look for people with a unique ability to bring a destination to life, right? Or to bring a place to life. And that sort of idea of having someone who is so passionate and so insightful about a place that can really translate that into something meaningful for the people that are on the tour with them. And when it's a small group like that, you can really, she said, they look for people that can really read the room and can read the audience and the people that are on the tour and kind of tailor it to the nuances of that particular group. And I think that's really special too, because when you have a lot of people in a group and they're all very different, how do you make everybody feel included? When it's a small group like that and you know a little bit more about them, then you can really tailor the experience and give them the kind of experience that they're looking for. So I thought that was really great.
Yeah, definitely. And I just love the idea of coming to a place not just to see it, but to really understand it, not to belabor the name, but the context of it. It really is, I think, the way forward for travel in a world where we need more understanding between people. And in the last episode, we talked about transformational travel and this idea of like travel that changes people. And I think part of that is this idea of understanding the context of a place and the people in a place, and that type of understanding that goes beyond the surface level, where the more, this is my thing, the more people that can have those kinds of mind-opening experiences, the better place the world will be, I believe. And I think there's a lot of people out there, such as the folks at Context Travel, who are going along with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would love to go on a Context Travel trip.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint. No, I didn't mean it like that. But like also from the perspective of someone who's worked for many years as a tour guide, I feel like the tours that were really the best tours were the tours where I managed to hit the nail on the head of what the people's interests were and pairing that with specific local knowledge that I had. And sometimes that would take a little bit more research. But if I found out early in the tour what people were interested in and then was able to work that in somehow to the standardized tour and make it special for them, those were the tours that really resonated with people. And I think they're definitely onto something with that. And that our research, Arival research, has showed that that's what people want. They want special interests. They want things that align with their interests and their passions. And they want to be off the beaten tourist track and really into it when they travel.
I think the other thing that I found really interesting is that they don't use OTAs. Right. They don't sell through OTAs.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. And when Douglas asked, like, why don't you sell through OTAs? It makes sense that they don't sell through OTAs, because June talked about how the experience with context starts from the very first message that they get from a traveler, right? Whether that's through a word of mouth or through a travel advisor, which is a big part of their business. She said that 50% of their business comes from travel advisors. The other 50% is like direct And a good portion of that is word of mouth, which is really impressive, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
every tour operator on the planet is drooling at the prospect of not having to sell through an OTA. But they've managed to create this experience that starts from the very first contact and flows right through to the end. And it would be hard to replicate that experience through something like an OTA, where the OTA is the primary contact for the consumer. When context really wants to be the shepherd of that experience for that customer from beginning to end, if you have an intermediary, unless it's something like it, and this is why they like travel advisors, is because travel advisors follow the same sort of logic as context in terms of being very personalized human experience, where everybody else is trying to get rid of the human element in order to save costs. Human travel advisors and that human contact is really what makes this experience special. And I think you and I have talked about this a lot in the past, that travel is a human experience, right? Like, we travel to these places to experience something new and to experience a point of view that we don't have ourselves. And that's really special.
Yeah. There's this idea that in order for things to be scalable, they need to be standardized. And that's on OTAs, you have scalable companies, standardized products that can be replicated and sold across a number of OTAs. But context travel's products can't do that because they're not standardized. They're very highly tailored to the traveler. But they have grown to become a multi-city, multi-destination global brand. And so that idea of, in order to scale, you need to standardize things doesn't really apply here. They've managed to figure out how to do it and still keep the essence of the personalization and the contextualization of their tours.
Yeah, it's an amazing company. And like you, I hope to one day take a context tour wherever I am. Hint, hint.
Okay.
Cool. This episode brought to you by.
It's not, though.
It's not. It's not. Just to be clear.
Yeah, and for anyone who would like to experience the conversation with June in person, she will be at Arival in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks. So maybe we'll see you there, and we'll be doing a session. Actually, I'll be doing a session with her on private and custom tours. Look forward to that.
It's going to be a popular topic.
So yeah, she'll be there in person in DC, and we're super excited to have her on the panel for private and custom tours.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Remember to follow and share this podcast with your friends, and check out the upcoming Arival events in Washington, D.C. and Valencia, Spain at Arival.Travel. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.